The moment I stepped onto the gravel path leading to Shadow's Keep, a shiver ran down my spine. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the weathered facade of the house where I had spent my childhood. It seemed to loom over me, its once vibrant bricks now dulled by years of neglect and decay. As I approached the heavy wooden door, memories flooded back, rich and vivid, yet tainted with an undercurrent of dread. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. "What are you so afraid of, Emma?" I whispered to myself, trying to shake off the anxiety that had settled in the pit of my stomach. I forced myself to turn the knob and push the door open, the creak echoing through the still air like a mournful sigh. The interior was suffocatingly dark, the air thick with dust and the scent of mildew. I stepped inside, my heart pounding, and the door slammed shut behind me with a finality that sent a jolt of fear through my veins. "This is home," I muttered under my breath, trying to convince myself. But the house felt different now, more like a tomb than a sanctuary. As I wandered through the entryway, the echoes of laughter and love that had once filled this space were replaced by a heavy silence. My fingers brushed against the faded wallpaper, and I recalled summer afternoons spent playing hide-and-seek with my mother, her laughter ringing like music. But those memories were quickly overshadowed by a sense of unease. I could almost feel the walls watching me, as if they held secrets I had long forgotten. "Emma," the voice startled me, a whisper carried on the wind. I spun around, heart racing. The house felt alive, its very essence pulsating around me. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence answered, wrapping around me like a shroud. That night, I lay in the old, creaking bed that used to feel so comforting. The darkness pressed in on me, and I struggled to find solace in the familiar surroundings. But then, the sounds began, whispers echoing through the halls, faint cries that crept into my dreams and roused me from sleep. "It's just the wind," I told myself, squeezing my eyes shut. "It's just the house settling." Yet, as the whispers grew louder, I could feel a deep-rooted anxiety clawing at the edges of my mind. "You're imagining things," I muttered, trying to drown out the unsettling sounds. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more insistent the whispers became. "Help us! Help us!" They seemed to plead, sending chills racing down my spine. Determined to shake off the unease, I resolved to explore the house in the morning. I needed to reclaim my childhood home and face whatever shadows lingered in the corners. The following day, I ventured into the dusty rooms, memories flooding back with each step. I found my old toys, now covered in cobwebs, their laughter silenced by the years. As I picked up a battered teddy bear, I noticed something odd. A few items were inexplicably out of place, as if someone or something had been moving them around. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath my weight, and a shudder ran through me. "You're being ridiculous," I chastised myself, but the shadows seemed to shift, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. I paused in front of the large, ornate mirror that hung in the hallway. My reflection stared back, eyes wide with apprehension. "What happened here?" I murmured, the silence swallowing my words. I could feel the weight of history pressing down on me, urging me to dig deeper into the shadows of my family's past. With a deep breath, I turned away from the mirror, determination coursing through me. I wouldn't let fear shackle me to the past. I had to uncover the truth, no matter how dark it might be. As I moved through the house, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and dread. I was home, yet the house felt foreign, as if it held a sinister secret waiting to be unearthed. "Let's see what you're hiding," I whispered to the house, a fire igniting within me. Little did I know, the journey I was about to embark on would unravel the very fabric of my existence, leading me down a path where shadows danced and whispers beckoned, revealing the haunting legacy of Shadow's Keep. I felt a heaviness in the air as I stood in front of my mother's old desk. It was scratched and faded like the memories it held. My fingers trembled as I ran them over the surface, searching for any sign of the warmth it once exuded. But it was cold now, just like the house around me. In a corner, my heart thudded as I noticed a locked drawer, a small brass lock gleaming defiantly in the dim light. I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden within. Just a few more minutes, I whispered to myself, a futile attempt to summon courage. I knelt down, feeling the chill of the floorboards seep through my jeans. The drawer resisted my probing fingers, but I was relentless. With a determined yank, I pried it open, the lock giving way with a reluctant creak. Inside, I found a diary, its pages yellowed and frayed. It smelled of dust and despair. As I flipped it open, my mother's familiar cursive spilled across the page, but the words were not the comforting thoughts I remembered. I felt my breath hitch as I read her entries, filled with paranoia and dread. "Something is wrong with the house," one entry began. "I can hear whispers at night calling my name. They want something from me." I shivered, the hairs on my arms standing on end. The more I read, the more I felt the dark presence that had lingered since my arrival tighten around me. "What were you so afraid of, Mom?" I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. I could almost hear her reply, a soft echo buried in the shadows. As I flipped through the pages, one entry caught my eye. It detailed a room she had warned me never to enter. The words were frantic, almost illegible, a testament to her terror. "The room at the end of the hall. It has always been there, lurking in the shadows. I can't bear the thought of what might happen if Emma ever steps foot inside. I must protect her, at all costs." Intrigue mingled with fear as I felt an inexplicable pull towards that room. It felt as if the house itself was beckoning me, whispering secrets I was desperate to uncover. I could almost hear my own heartbeat echoing against the walls, urging me forward. That night, sleep eluded me. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, flickering and twisting, as if alive. The house moaned under the weight of the silence, and I was acutely aware of every creak and groan. Just as I was drifting into a restless slumber, a thunderous crash erupted from upstairs, jolting me awake. "What was that?" I gasped, my heart racing. Adrenaline surged through me, and I could feel the fear clawing at my throat. I glanced at the clock. It was past midnight, the hour when the veil between the worlds thinned. I sat up, debating whether to investigate. "You can't be serious," I chided myself. "You just found a diary filled with warnings, and now you want to go exploring?" Yet, the curiosity was insatiable, a fire that refused to be extinguished. "Maybe it's just the wind," I muttered, though I knew better. The wind didn't sound like that. It felt like a challenge, a dare to confront the unknown. Gripping my flashlight, I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the chill of the floor shocking me into action. With each step, the floorboards creaked beneath my weight, a symphony of protest that echoed through the empty house. I climbed the staircase carefully, my heart thumping louder with every step. As I reached the top, the hallway stretched out before me, dark and foreboding. Just a quick look, I promised myself, though deep down I knew it was more than that. I had to know what lay beyond that door. I moved towards it, my breath hitching in my throat as I reached for the handle. The air felt electric, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for my next move. "Here goes nothing," I whispered, turning the handle. The door creaked open, revealing darkness that swallowed the light from my flashlight. A shiver ran down my spine, and I stepped inside, ready to confront whatever secrets the house had been hiding. The air was heavy as I stepped into the hidden room, the musty scent of age and neglect enveloping me like a shroud. Behind the bookshelf, I had uncovered a world that felt like a malignant extension of Shadow's Keep itself. My heart raced as I scanned the dimly lit space, and the soft scratching of my shoes on the floorboards echoed in the silence. The walls were adorned with disturbing drawings, each one a grotesque manifestation of twisted childhood imaginings. There were figures with elongated limbs and gaping mouths, their eyes dark voids that seemed to watch me with malevolence. "What the hell is this?" I whispered, my voice trembling as I stepped closer to one of the drawings. It depicted a child with a twisted smile, holding hands with a shadowy figure that loomed over them. I couldn't shake the feeling that these were not merely the products of imagination, but rather glimpses into something far more sinister. As I moved deeper into the room, a wave of emotions washed over me, each drawing stirring a different reaction. Fear gripped my chest as I realized that these images were not just art, but a reflection of suffering, of trapped souls perhaps. This can't be real," I muttered, trying to convince myself. The chill in the air intensified, wrapping around me like icy fingers, making my skin prickle. Suddenly, a low whisper broke through the oppressive silence, sending a shiver down my spine. "Emma," it hissed, the voice echoing from the shadows. My pulse quickened, and I turned, searching the darkness for the source. "Leave this place," it urged, and I felt my heart pound in my throat. Panic surged within me, and I stumbled back against the wall, my breath hitching. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Show yourself." The shadows seemed to swirl around me, and the whispering grew louder, more insistent, urging me to escape. I wanted to run, to flee from this nightmarish reality, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, as if the very house was holding me captive. Then, without warning, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening crash. The sound echoed like thunder, reverberating through the confined space. I whirled around, my heart racing as I rushed towards the door, my hands trembling. "No, let me out," I screamed, pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I pounded my fists against the wood, panic clawing at my insides. The whispers crescendoed, a cacophony of voices swirling around me, each one pleading, warning, or mocking. "You shouldn't have come here, Emma. You can't escape what's been done." I pressed my ear against the door, desperate to hear anything beyond the chaos. "This is not your home. It's a prison," one voice cooed, sending a chill down my spine. "No, no, no," I cried, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I felt a surge of determination rise within me. I couldn't let this place claim me too. I stepped back, my mind racing. My fingers brushed against the wall, searching for something, anything, that could help me escape this hellish room. Then, I spotted a small gap between the door and the frame. I knelt, my heart pounding as I shoved my fingers into the crevice, praying for just a little give. Come on, come on," I whispered to myself, my heart racing faster than I thought possible. The whispers grew frantic, urging me to stop, to surrender. But I couldn't. I wouldn't give in. With a final push, the door creaked open, just enough for me to squeeze through. I gasped, diving into the hallway as I tumbled out into the dim light. My heart raced, and I scrambled to my feet, not daring to look back. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, whispering sweet nothings that clawed at my sanity. But I forced myself to run. "Emma," a voice called from the darkness, but I didn't stop. I couldn't risk finding out who, or what, was calling me. I darted down the hallway, the walls closing in around me, the past and the present merging into a terrifying blur. Shadows danced in my periphery, but I kept my focus ahead, driven by a primal instinct to escape. As I stumbled into the main room, the oppressive weight of the hidden room slipped away, but the haunting whispers lingered in my mind. I was alive, but I knew I hadn't escaped the darkness within Shadow's Keep. The secrets I had unearthed were only the beginning, and the shadows would always be waiting, lurking just beyond the light. As I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of my family's history pressed down on me like the heavy air of the room. My mother's diary lay open beside me, its pages filled with jagged handwriting that spoke of fear and desperation. The ink bled into the fibers of the paper, capturing her torment in a way that felt all too real. I traced my fingers over the worn words, each one pulling me deeper into the dark legacy of Shadow's Keep. "This can't be true," I whispered aloud, though a part of me knew it was. My ancestors had made a pact, a deal with something sinister that promised prosperity in exchange for the souls of their children. I could almost hear my mother's voice echoing in my mind, warning me to stay away from the dark corners of the house, to never speak of the things that lurked in the shadows. "No more," I murmured, my resolve hardening. I had to break this cycle. The thought of my future being dictated by the malevolent entity that my family had served for generations filled me with rage. I could feel the shadows creeping around me, but this time, I refused to be afraid. Determined, I rose from the bed and made my way to the old library. Dust motes danced in the beams of moonlight that filtered through the grimy windows. Each step echoed, reminding me that I was alone, but I wasn't truly alone, was I? The house felt alive, its walls whispering secrets that I could almost understand. "Show me what you want," I called out, my voice steady despite the thrill of fear that coursed through me. "I will not be a pawn in your game." The silence that followed was deafening. I searched the library for anything that might help me understand the pact better. Books lined the shelves, their spines cracked and faded. I pulled one out, an old history of the area that detailed the founding families. As I flipped through the pages, I found mention of Shadow's Keep and the dark entity that had claimed it as its domain. "Emma," a voice whispered from the shadows. I froze, my heart pounding. It was the same voice I had heard the night before, but this time, it felt closer. "Who's there?" I demanded, forcing myself to sound braver than I felt. "Why do you defy what is destined?" The voice hissed, slithering through the air like a snake. I refused to let my life be dictated by fear and darkness. I shouted, my voice resonating against the walls. There was a pause, and then the shadows seemed to shift, gathering in the corner of the room. "You cannot escape your lineage, Emma. Your blood is tainted with our pact. I will find a way," I insisted, my determination surging. Ignoring the rising panic within me, I pushed forward. "You think you can scare me into submission? I'm not like the others." "Foolish girl," the voice sneered, its tone icy. "You have no idea of the power that binds you." As the shadows coalesced, I felt a chill wash over me. The air thickened, and I could almost discern shapes forming in the darkness. I remembered the drawings I had seen in the hidden room, grotesque figures and symbols that seemed to come alive in my mind. "I have to end this," I said, more to myself than to the entity. "I will not let you take another soul." With a deep breath, I turned back to the diary and flipped through the pages, desperate for insight. There had to be a way to break this cycle. I found an entry detailing a ritual that could sever ties with the entity, but it required courage and a sacrifice of my own. "What do you want from me?" I whispered, feeling the weight of the words settle over me like a shroud. "Only what is rightfully ours," the voice replied, now echoing from all corners of the room. "You will understand soon, Emma. You are already ours." I staggered back, my heart racing. The shadows writhed around me, and I could feel their cold grasp pulling at my consciousness. "No!" I cried, shaking my head as if I could physically reject their hold. "Embrace your fate," the entity urged, its voice a venomous whisper that snaked into my ears. "You are bound to us, and the darkness will always find you. A surge of anger propelled me forward. I am not afraid of you. I will fight. The shadows recoiled, momentarily startled by my defiance. I could feel the energy shifting in the room, as if the very walls were holding their breath. I had to stand my ground. This was my moment to confront the darkness that had haunted my family for generations. Show yourself, I demanded, my voice steady as I stepped deeper into the gathering shadows, refusing to back down. I am ready to face you. As the shadows twisted and writhed, I prepared myself for the confrontation that loomed ahead, knowing that the truth would either liberate me or bind me forever. I stood at the threshold of the hidden room, my heart racing like a caged bird desperate for freedom. The air was thick with an unsettling energy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for my next move. Armed with my mother's diary, its pages worn and frayed from years of secrets, I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The door creaked ominously behind me, sealing me in with whatever dark presence lurked within these walls. Okay, Emma, you can do this, I whispered to myself, clutching the diary tightly, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on my shoulders. I could still hear the muffled whispers from earlier, taunting me, urging me to turn back. But I couldn't. Not now. I had to confront the entity that had haunted my family for centuries. I positioned myself in the center of the room, surrounded by the grotesque drawings that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Each figure was a nightmare made real, a manifestation of the fears that had been passed down through the generations. I flipped through the pages of the diary, searching for the protective incantation I had memorized, my voice trembling as I began to recite it. By the light of the ancients, I command thee. As I spoke, the room trembled violently, and the air grew heavy with darkness. The drawings began to swirl around me, their colors merging into a chaotic dance of terror. I could feel the entity's presence, a cold, suffocating force pressing against my chest, trying to break my resolve. Do you think you can stop me, little girl? A voice echoed in the darkness, dripping with malice. It was deep and resonant, like the growl of a beast lurking just beyond my sight. I will stop you, I shouted, my voice gaining strength from the anger that bubbled within me. You won't take anyone else from my family. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced, forming a figure that loomed larger than life. Its eyes glowed like embers, and I could feel its hunger gnawing at the edges of my mind, trying to lure me into despair. I clenched my fists, grounding myself in the memory of my mother's love, the sacrifices she made for me. You thrive on fear, but I refuse to be afraid. The entity laughed, a sound that chilled my bones. Fear is your nature, Emma. You cannot escape it. I could feel myself faltering as the shadows pressed closer, but then something shifted within me. A surge of defiance ignited my spirit. You're wrong. I'm not my family's past. I am not a pawn in your game. As I screamed out my pain and anger, something remarkable happened. The drawings, once swirling in chaotic frenzy, began to dissipate, their grotesque forms unraveling like smoke in the wind. The entity's face twisted in fury, its power waning as I confronted the darkness that had held my family captive for so long. And oh, it howled, the sound reverberating through the room like thunder. You cannot break what has been bound for centuries. But I was relentless, my voice rising above the chaos. I break the cycle. I choose my own fate. With each word, I felt a warmth spreading through me, the protective energy of my mother's love enveloping me like a shield. The shadows recoiled, the entity's form flickering like a dying flame. I pressed on, my heart pounding in my chest. I am not afraid of you. I refuse to let you control me or my family any longer. With one final, shattering cry, I unleashed the truth of my lineage, the pain and suffering that had been felt for generations. The room surged with light, and just as the entity lunged forward, I felt a crackling energy erupt from within me. "Be gone!" The darkness erupted, the room imploding in a whirlwind of light and shadow. My vision blurred as I was engulfed in a tempest of emotions. Fear, anger, sorrow, until everything turned to black. When I opened my eyes again, the hidden room lay silent. The drawings were gone, replaced by bare, cold walls. I sat up, bewildered, as the weight of what had just transpired pressed down on me. The diary lay open beside me, its pages now filled with new entries, chronicling the dark history of my family in a way I had never experienced before. I felt a chill run down my spine as I read the words, the realization settling in. I had confronted the entity, but at what cost? As I looked around the empty room, the shadows seemed to linger, a reminder that while I had fought fiercely, the battle was far from over. As the entity reeled from my unexpected strength, its form began to waver, revealing a flicker of something almost human behind the swirling shadows. "You don't understand, do you?" It hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that slithered around my mind. "Your mother made a choice, a desperate choice." My heart raced, confusion swirling within me like the shadows that danced around the room. "What do you mean?" I demanded, trying to steady my voice. What did she choose? The entity's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound both beautiful and horrifying. "To save you from me, she sacrificed herself. She sealed her fate so that you could live." With each word, I felt a piece of my heart shatter. My mother, the woman who had filled my childhood with warmth and love, had willingly given herself to this monster to protect me. She thought she could keep you safe, but now you are bound to this place, just as she was. "No!" I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. "I won't let this happen." I felt a surge of energy course through me, igniting a fire within. I wouldn't allow my mother's sacrifice to be in vain. The darkness shifted, and I pushed forward, drawing on every ounce of my anger and sorrow as I faced the entity. "You won't take me." I refused to be another victim of this curse. In a final surge of resolve, I thrust my hands out, channeling the protective energy I had gathered from my mother's diary. The air crackled with electricity, and the room trembled as I shouted the incantation, louder and more determined than before. "You have no power over me. I break this cycle." The shadows screamed, an echo of anguish that reverberated through the walls of Shadow's Keep. The drawings on the walls began to glow with an eerie light, swirling around me in a chaotic frenzy. I felt their pain, their fear, their longing for freedom, and in that moment, I understood that I was not just fighting for my life, but for the souls trapped within these walls for generations. But just as I believed I had gained the upper hand, the entity lunged at me, its shadowy form morphing into a grotesque visage of despair. "You think you can escape me?" It bellowed, its voice a cacophony of the tormented. Darkness enveloped me, cold and suffocating, and I felt my strength wane. "You are mine." The room imploded into pure blackness, and I was consumed by the void, my consciousness slipping away. I awoke in the same room, yet everything felt different. The oppressive shadows had dissipated, leaving the walls bare and clean. The drawings that once haunted my vision were gone, and a thick layer of silence enveloped me, so profound that it felt unreal. My heart raced, confusion clouding my thoughts as I struggled to sit up. Before me lay an open diary, its pages crisp and untouched, contrasting starkly with the lingering memories of terror. I reached out, trembling as I flipped through the pages, each one filled with my mother's familiar handwriting. But as I read, a chill gripped my heart. "Emma, my beloved," one entry began. "I made a choice to protect you, to bind you to this place so that you would never feel the pain I endured. I thought I could keep you safe, but I was wrong. The darkness runs through our blood, and now you are its keeper." "No, no," I whispered, my voice trembling as the implication sank in. "What have you done?" The realization crashed over me like a wave. The entity hadn't just been trying to take me. It had been waiting for me to inherit this burden. I was now bound to Shadow's Keep, just as my mother had been, and the cycle of torment had not ended. It had merely shifted. As I stared at the diary, dread pooled in my stomach. A shadow flickered in my periphery, and I turned slowly, my breath catching in my throat. There, silhouetted against the dim light, was a figure, vague and indistinct, yet undeniably present. "Welcome home, Emma," it whispered, a voice that echoed my mother's but twisted with malice. The shadow loomed larger, encroaching upon me, and I felt the weight of my fate pressing down like a shroud. My mind raced, thoughts spinning wildly. I was terrified, trapped in a legacy I never asked for. As I gasped, the weight of my mother's sacrifice crashed over me, and I realized that the true horror of Shadow's Keep was not just the entity lurking within its walls, but the unending cycle of sacrifice and darkness that now belonged to me. The story was far from over, and I was only beginning to uncover the depths of my family's secrets.